to the 2026 budget presentation, I want to take care of a few housekeeping items before we get started. One is, and this is not to try to limit conversation, but in one way it is. This is a special meeting, and as a special meeting, the only things the board can really discuss and certainly act on are anything related to what the purpose of the special meeting was. And the purpose of this special meeting is all about the budget. So this is not a regular board meeting. It's not where you can get up and talk about all the different things that you might want to talk about today. That will be December 11th. We purposely move up the meeting in December so we don't conflict with Christmas. So it's about 2 weeks earlier than we normally would have it. And by tradition, we have not had for quite a while any board meetings in November. So it kind of bridges that little gap. So please, if you got questions that you really want to get into with the board that are not related to the budget, please come to the December 11th meeting and let us know what your questions are and your comments, okay? The second thing is that we got well, I don't know if I call it a lengthy presentation. It's certainly a presentation, but please hold your questions to the end. Let us get through all the material, and then we'll take your questions at the end, okay? So we're not going to try to be interactive here because we hope that as we go through the content, that what you'll see is that many of your questions are being answered. So we'll just wait for that, okay? All right. Now, let's make the magic happen. We want to recognize several groups that have worked on the budget here. This has been a little bit different budget. I'm going to go through some of the challenges we've had with it so that you understand a little bit better that this is not typically what we went into in the budgeting cycle here. First of all, I'd like to recognize the board members that are here. And all the board members stand so everybody can see you. And we'll just kind of introduce you here. Scott Hardema is here. He's the vice president. Monica Heisel is the secretary. Isaac is an at-large director. And Mark McLean is the interval owner representative. M.K. Jacobson, who's our treasurer, is not here today. She had a vacation planned, and she thought it was going to be last week, and we moved it to this week, so she's down in sunny Florida right now. And Ellen Anderson is, she's not a resident here. She's up in New York, so she's there. So that's the board here. The next group I want to recognize is the SMTs and the general manager, COO. Will you please stand? And let's make sure we go through all of you guys. All right? Bill Ward. Where are you, Bill? Oh, there he is. I lost him. Okay, he's our COO and general manager. Jason Lambert, who you'll be hearing from in a little bit, is our CFO. Pat Davis, our executive assistant. Bruce Evans, who's in charge of public works. Jeff Houston with golf. Chief Kate Self, police department. William Taylor, racket sports. Candace Neely, human resources. Mary Jo Page, marketing. And Linda James, food and beverage. That's our SMT group. Then the final group we want to recognize is the Financial Advisory Committee. And please stand, and I'll call off your names so that everybody can see you. Oh, we got ourselves in a group. That's good. Becky Leeper is the chairperson for the committee. Just kind of raise your hand so they know who you are, Becky. Mike Epler is the vice chair. Okay. Jeff Lewis is the secretary. I didn't see Jeff here today. Okay. Ted Brown, Gary Crevo, David Powell, and Natalie Stenardo. I didn't see Natalie either. Okay, so we had a couple missing. But these people, I would say even much more so than the board. The board did a lot of work on the guidelines, but the SMTs, Bill, and the FAC played a critical role in putting this budget together. And there was a lot of give and take. There were a lot of more discussions than that we've had in prior years about the budget. So it was a good process. It was a sound process. We're going to improve on it next year. And but these people really deserve a lot of thank yous because they really had a very difficult task in front of them this year and did a wonderful job in terms of dealing with the cards that they had. So we're going to do part education in the first part of this before we get into the numbers. So what is Fairfield Glade? Well, out of our vision statement, we are a resort lifestyle community that is governed by an elected board of directors. We're also a 501c4, according to the IRS, the Internal Revenue Code, non-tax exempt organization. And that puts us in a class what's called a welfare organization. So there's some specific codes. That's one of the reasons why our amenities are open to the public, as opposed to being a private club, which would also be a tax exempt status. So we operate a little differently than others, okay? And that's important when we start talking about our budgets and who can play here and who can't and what they can do and what they can't do. We're also, and this is an important piece, we are under the law of Tennessee in what's called the Tennessee Code Annotated Title 48 Not-for-Profit Corporation Act. We are not under the HOA Act. That's a separate act, and we do not fall under that act. We fall under the non-exempt or the the Not-for-Profit Corporation Act. And there are a lot of differences because we fall under that and the way we have to conduct our business and the reporting we have to do. And I'm not going to go into all of that, but a lot of people misunderstand. They think we are under that HOA Act, and it's a very different act in terms of how they have to conduct business. So just keep that in mind. Another thing that we're always reminded of is that we come under the Cumberland County governance. And one thing that I think is becoming increasingly clear to people is that Cumberland County, if you haven't noticed, is a rural county. We're not a large city, we're not a municipality, we're not any of those kinds of things. And Fairfield Glade itself is not a municipality, nor are we incorporated. That's why we have to match a lot of our policies and our procedures and how we do work and how we interact with people with what the county does. We don't fund, we're not anything to do with Crossville's governance structure. And you know, people ask me all the time when they were in the process of building the YMCA, well, aren't we going to be able to use it? That's not up to us. We're not paying for it. Crossville's paying for it. And so it's up to Crossville to define the rules of how they're going to have guests and things like that. And people oftentimes don't understand the difference. But it's a very important difference to understand. We fall under county governance and then our own rules and policies and things like that that we have here. Whoops. We're not going to repeat ourselves. Okay. So a couple other things that people don't always realize and we tend to forget because we talk about our assessments and we talk about our costs kind of lumped in. But we're a different animal than most HOAs or even other POAs that exist in the United States. For instance, we do quasi-municipal services, things like a police department, things like a volunteer fire department, things like, and we do donations for that, things like wastewater treatment you don't find in most HOAs or POAs. They just don't do them. They rely on the municipality or the county or whoever to provide those services. And we're going to get into that because there's costs associated with that and people need to realize it. And the Fairfield Glade Community Club POA, Property Owners Association, are really the ones that work with the amenities. And the amenities are the things like golf, racket sports, trails, all those types of things that we enjoy being here. And we are what we call a pay-to-play community. And what that means is that we do have fees for people to play golf and that type of thing. But the thing that's really important here, and most people don't really understand, is that every amenity we have, I don't care whether it's trails, golf, racket sports, bocce ball, whatever you want to call it, it's subsidized. Now, we always talk about the ones, you know, the big ones, and we talk about food and beverage a lot, but that's only one that's subsidized. All the other amenities are subsidized in some way, shape, or form. So, for instance, like we've got some bunker work that we're going to do in one of the golf courses next year, year after next, I'm sorry. We're paying that out of our capital. We're not going to go back and assess everybody for that project at that point. We take that, and that's really a subsidy because we don't necessarily put all those in our fees. If we did, you wouldn't be paying a round of golf for what you're paying here. It would be a lot more. So every amenity here is really subsidized in some way, shape, or form, and that's important for you to understand. So we focus in on things like food and beverage because it sticks out sometimes, but in every amenity's case, it is subsidized. So, a couple things that we had to come to the realization on. And these are important things that we had to consider when we put in the budget together. We became pretty reliant on Wyndham, or actually I should say the timeshares. That's another thing I've got to get out of my vocabulary. We talked about Wyndham all the time. The timeshares are actually represented by 8 HOA associations, homeowner associations. Wyndham doesn't own all those. They are the deed holders to the timeshares, okay? They're people like you see every other week that come in here and go and use our facilities and that type of thing. Those are the real owners. So it's somewhat of a misnomer when we talk about Wyndham. It's just a convenient thing because Wyndham really is the management company that manages all that for those homeowners. So that's what really was happening. The other thing is that we became pretty dependent on that revenue. And if you take a look at the CNRs, which covenants and restrictions in our bylaws, you'll find out very quickly that no one, when they wrote those things, ever anticipated that the interval owners were going to go away. That wasn't in the cards. You won't see anything in there. As a matter of fact, about the only thing it really talks about in there is that we have the right to assess them up to 2 times their annual assessments, which we do. And they, of course, they pay for sewer, and we'll get into that a little bit here in a second. So they represent really about 11% of our revenue. That's not a slow news item. That's a lot of money, and I'm going to show you about how much it is here in a second. We have limited information. Still, as of when I walked in this building this morning, Wyndham and the homeowners associations actually have not filed their bankruptcy documents yet. So a lot of people are asking me, well, what are you going to do? But the fact of the matter is, until we see those documents and we understand how they're filing their bankruptcy and what their plan is, we don't know. And we had to build that into our budgeting process here because there's a risk associated with making assumptions, and we need to make sure that we manage that risk correctly. So a lot of people think that we know a lot of stuff. We don't. And we will have to find out, and we're trying to find out, but understand their first fiduciary responsibility is to those homeowner associations, not us. And that's as it should be, because if we were doing something, we would feel the same way about it. So just keep that in mind as well. And even though they have approved the filing, like I said, it still has not been done yet. So that gives us a lot of, if you will call, uncertainty with what we need to do with assessments. So let's talk a little bit about what the timeshares really bring to the table. And we took this straight from our 2025 budgets. So these are not made up numbers, these are actual numbers. A lot of people want to say, well, gee, let's get rid of the timeshares. You know, they said that to me, I don't know how many times. Take that person off the board. They have no rights here. Well, the fact of the matter is, they've subsidized us as members for quite a while. And those subsidies are very real. They saved each one of us, each home property owner here, $114 a year in assessments because they were paying double assessments. The guest revenue that we received is about $150 a year. And that's because they use our golf courses, our racket sports, they eat our food and beverage venues, they use our marinas. Matter of fact, the marinas are, I think, Jason, I think this is right, about 60% of our revenue there, right? For marinas? 36. How much? 36. So it's sizable. And then the timeshares also pay a flat fee for pools, and that is about $5, $6 really, about a year. And then they pay for sewer, which is another $30. You add all that up, that's about a $300 per year subsidy. Now, roughly so you know, we're not just giving you this as a marker. You're going to see how we had to deal with this in the budget process. But roughly, $1 of assessments creates about $100,000 for the club. So this is a big difference for us. And it's important that you understand where it's coming from, and we'll get into when we get into the numbers of how we had to deal with that. And this is one of the reasons why I think at the end of this, you'll appreciate the work the FAC, the SMTs, and the board had to do to get to the budgets we're talking about. couple other things that are important, and we tend to forget some of these things as well. If you took a look at the 2025 median monthly HOA POA fee in Tennessee for organizations like ours, they pay about $150 a month. Now that equates for us not to the $120, for instance, most of you pay. That equates to the $81 for POA amenities that you pay. And remember, as I said before, when you take a look at that $81, you've got police department in there, you've got fire, our donation to the fire department, and you've got roads in there that typically most POAs, HOAs don't have to deal with. But it's in our assessments. And roughly, that equates to, if you do all the math real quick, that equates to about $30 of our assessments. So really, for what we compare ourselves to for most HOAs and POAs, where the median is at about 150, we would be around 51. That's a big gap. And things like Wyndham has helped subsidize that. We have kept our costs down, and one of the things that has happened a lot is that we get a lot of guests, and that's being a 501c4. We encourage that. That's why we have golf packages come in. That's why we have people from Crossville come in. That's why we have other people come in and stay and play and that type of thing. So they are actually subsidizing our dues or our assessments. If you take a look on a national level, the median POA, HOA assessment is right around $290 a month, which is a far cry even from Tennessee. As a matter of fact, what you'll find is that Tennessee really is in the lowest 5 throughout the country in terms of states for POA and HOA assessments. People come here all the time and they say this is a real bargain, and you know what? They're right. That's one of the reasons why I came here. It's probably one of the reasons why you guys came here as well. So if we take a look closer, more locally, and take a look at Tellico Village, right now today they're paying $180 in terms of assessment. And again, that's not for police, it's not for roads. Those things are not a part of their. They do have a fire department that they contribute to. So the proposed 2026 Fairfield Glade POA assessments is still going to make us it will make us still the lowest in Tennessee. We're not going to go up to where some of these other people are. And that's still with a very amenity-laden property. So keep this in mind when you're hearing things, because you have to keep in mind the total picture. It's not just what we're doing this year. Now, there were some unique challenges that came up this year when we were trying to do the budgets, not the least of which, we only heard about Wyndham on July 27th. And I can sit here with 10 stacks of Bibles and tell you we knew nothing about what Wyndham was going to announce in that until Mark McLean called me at a meeting I was at and said, Wyndham is shutting down operations as of December 31st. That was the first time we heard about it on July 27th. We were pretty much into the budget process by then. Matter of fact, we were probably 80% of the way there. This changed everything, because as what you see is that, you know, $300 out of your assessments per person, that's a big cover. That's about 2.4 million we're talking about, maybe 3. So a couple other things we had to consider when we're doing this. We only work because our employees do the job they do. If we didn't have the employees we had, we'd be in real problems. So we have to remain competitive for recruitment and retention of our staff. So yes, we have to build wages increases in there. Yes, we have to take a look at our salary surveys and make sure that we are being competitive, because other people come and get us. And a good example of that is our police department. Once we train all those guys, like the guys back there, they could be picked off pretty easily by another community club or another city even. And we have to remain competitive or we won't have them here. And these are decisions that boards and the community made long years ago about having additional police and fire and that type of thing. The other thing is that how much risk were we willing to assume in the budget? And risk is a scale. And you're going to hear some of that when you see the numbers. I'm not going to get too deep in that. But we had to make sure that what we have in our budget is a tolerable risk for our community. And that means that we're going to have to look at some things differently, because we're going to see large chunks of things that are going to be not here anymore, not the least of which is our timeshare income. So the other things that we know that we got to do in 2026 to be more proactive, to answer the questions better. Now, we got some of them done, but we still have work to do on others. The new wastewater treatment engineering study, the one we have right now, is about 6.5 years old. Matter of fact, it was put on when first year I was on the board, I saw it. And it's a 10-year study. So we're getting to the end of life of that. And we also have put in a lot more people, homes, roads, everything else in here. So we need to take a look at that in terms of what our usage now is, as opposed to what it was 6 years ago when the study was done. So that's a big one we got to do. A new reserve study. We have a reserve study, and you're going to see that, again, we are contributing again to the reserve study. We're not taking that out because it's important. If we don't fund our reserve projects, what happened over in Druid will be a repeat. And what happened over there, for those of you that may not have been here at that time, the first thing the board asked the question of was, can we renovate Druid as opposed to build new? When we went in there, we had an independent engineering firm come in and take a look at that. We were not involved with it at all. We let them into the building, and by golly, they went through it. They came back and said, there's no way you can renovate this. You haven't taken care of your building, and as a result of that, you're going to have to build new. And that's not where we want to go in the future. We want to take care of our assets. We want to make sure that the useful life is there. That building, if maintained correctly, should have had a lot more useful years in it than what we got. We got about 48, 50 years out of it. It should have been around a lot longer than that. But it just was not practical to look at. And if we don't do something and stay current with the reserve studies here, that will happen over and over and over again. So we've stopped that, we're funding it, and we're keeping along with it. So, but we need a new reserve study because of the additions over the last several years. We're going to do a core study, master plan. What that will be is some people refer to it as a land use study. What that's really going to do is take a look at all of our not buildable, or all of our land here that we have in Fairfield Glade, and what should be the future use of it. Whether it's residential, whether it's going to be a new fire department building, whether it's going to be a new emergency service building, whether we have to increase the police, whether or not we have to add to the amenities. All that stuff is going to be a part of that, and you, as a community member, will have opportunities to participate in that. We're also going to have to involve a lot of other people, not the least of which will be people like the county, Volunteer Electric Corporation, Co-op, the new regional authority for water. All those things have to go into the planning, and that will be a major initiative in 2026 as we get that rolled out. We can't really start at that too much until we see where Wyndham's kind of headed, because we don't know what the scope of that's going to be. So we're going to get on it in 2026, but we've got to wait a little bit to find out where Wyndham's going with some of this. And then finally, we need to do a staffing study to match the work effort with the headcount. Fundamentally, if you go back and take a look at our organization, we are serving with about the same staff that we had when we were about 4,500 people here. We're now 10,000. That's a big difference. And the work doesn't get smaller, it gets larger. So we need to really do a staffing study to see that we really have, for the kinds of things we want to have for this community, that we have the employees and resources here needed to do it. All of this is heading us to a conversation around self-sustainment. And what is self-sustainment? You're going to hear two phrases here a lot today. Self-sustainment means that what happened with us with Wyndham, we shouldn't have to deal with again. We don't want to have a big surprise on July 27th for a budget for the next year. We're going to have to work to being self-sustaining. The second thing you're going to hear is about rebalancing. What's rebalancing? Well, rebalancing in its fundamental sense is taking into account all the things that have happened this year and happened to us, and getting those into our assessment and our planning, so again, we can start making those steps the way we need to. Now, I'm pretty much done here. We'll hold questions to the end, and we're going to have Jason Lambert, our CFO, come up here and take you through the numbers. So, Jason?
As Greg mentioned, I'm going to take you through the numbers and discuss not only the POA and amenity budget, but also our sewer and our capital budget. So I'm going to start with our budget assumptions that we use for 2026. When we were planning the budget for 2026, we assumed we would not receive any income from Wyndham, or as Greg indicated, interval or timeshare. Also, we would not receive any amenity revenue from our timeshare guests. Therefore, for us to rebalance, we anticipated the amenity revenue would be less than in previous years. We needed to cover our fixed costs, support our employees, i.e. health insurance and merit increases. We needed to cover our increases in general expenses. We also eliminated the 2% amenity revenue contribution to capital. So 100% of the revenue for the amenities will stay in the divisions and departments. We're going to return our food and beverage back to Fairfield Glade management from BJL. Therefore, we eliminated the member discounts in food and beverage in 2026. We had to ensure funding for road paving and maintenance. We also had to cover the price of a new sanitation truck, which, since we've gotten quotes from years previous, has essentially doubled. The only fee increases we've had for 2026 are amenity reserve fee, our golf fees, and center and multipurpose building room fees. When we say our assessments, I just want to make sure that the membership knew that 75% of the assessments go to the POA and amenities. The other 25% go to our capital budget to cover our capital expenditures, and it's a line item in our capital. So 75% or 75 cents of every dollar goes to the POA and amenities operating budget. 25% or 25 cents go to cover our capital expenditures. The assessment rebalance for 2026 total is $17 per month, or $204 for the year. To cover increased fixed costs to the community club, that represented approximately $4. To cover the timeshare assessment and mini revenue loss is approximately $9. So our net assessment rebalance is $13 per month, or $156 per year. We also had to increase sanitation based on the formula that we showed you previously. 75% of the increase stays in the sanitation department, and then 25% goes to capital to cover the cost of new truck. The total rebalance, as I said, is $17 for the month, or $204 for the year. If we look at the highest tier, the 2025 assessments were $81. The proposed 26 assessment is an increase of $13 to $94. Sanitation previous year was $9. We are proposing to increase it by $4. Again, $3 will stay in the sanitation, $1 to capital. So therefore, that is $13 increase. Our sewer fees have stayed the same at $30. The total for the month will be $137, or $1,644 for the year, which is a net increase of $204 from 2025. As you know, we have several different property tiers at Fairfield Glade. We have homes with sewers and septic. We also have lot owners, and those are categorized by A, B, and C. The increase for the home with sewer per month is $17, as well as septic. The increase for an A-tier lot is $13. B and C have a 85 and 65%, and that's $11 for a B lot and $8.35 for a C lot. And as you can see on the column to the right, the monthly 137 all the way down to 61. Now we're getting into the operations of our POA. Most of the money that comes in flows from the assessments into our admin department, which cover the other areas or divisions of the Property Owners Association. These are net figures, so this is revenue minus expenses. So for admin, we are anticipating a $6.5 million. We have deficits in fire department, the police department. These are non-revenue generating divisions of our POA. Marketing and events and public works. So subtotal POA, once you take away all the subsidies, we are anticipating a net positive of $587,000 for the POA. The other side of that coin are the amenities. Golf, food and beverage, the center and recreation will make up our amenities. As you can see to the far right-hand column, we anticipate $382,000 of positive revenue in golf. Subsidies in the food and beverage in the center, as well as recreation. Subtotal amenities, we anticipate a deficit of $512,000, which brings us to a positive $74,000 if you subtract the amenities from the POA. The 25%, or 25 cents per dollar that I mentioned earlier, flows to our capital, cash flow. And you can see the different line items, the capital assessments, the amenity reserve fees. These are the transfer fees of when homes or lots transfer from one owner to the next. Our reserve funding and our interest, our bad debt recovery, and our lot sales and mergers. We anticipate total capital revenue of $6.7 million. Total capital expenditures is $6.4, which gives us a net positive of approximately $262,000 that would go to our reserves. The major projects for 2026, many of you have already seen the firehouse and the EMS building. We anticipate spending $2.7 million. The core study master plan that Greg mentioned earlier is approximately $500,000, and updating our reserve study is $50,000. The Fairfield Glade Fire Department EMR program capital expenditures are approximately $110,000, which is $3.3 million for our POA capital projects for 2026. The amenity major projects, Druid Hills Clubhouse, we anticipate $10.3 million spend in 2026. The Racket Center, which is still under consideration based on the current circumstances, is $500,000. And the Druid Hills bunker renovation that Greg had mentioned earlier is $210,000 for 2026. Some of the regular capital projects that we anticipate for 26 as well. The number that I'm going to referencing is the subtotal here. The subtotal for POA, we anticipate spending $415,000. The breakout is above. And this will all be made available after the presentation. For the amenities regular capital, we anticipate spending $900,000. And then for the capital reserve study projects, we anticipate spending $584,000 in 2026, which is represents 1.8, almost 1.9 million for 26, up from 1.78 in 2025. Slide represents the funds that we use to pay for our capital projects. We have an operating reserve fund. Any net income flows into that to be later distributed to other funds if needed. We have a debt service reserve fund we contribute to monthly. This will pay for our Druid Hills loan going into the future. Amenity reserve fee, these are the fees that I had mentioned where transfer fees will go into this fund. We anticipate an increase from $5,000 to $6,000 in 2026. The sanitation truck fund represents 25% of the $4 increase in the sanitation department. Trucks have doubled in price, and so we are contributing $2 to this capital fund going forward instead of $1 as previous years. These are your fund balances, beginning balances, usage, contributions, and the ending balance. These will correlate and tie into previous slides. I'm not going to go too far into this, but you can see that we are using and contributing, and our fund balances are primarily increasing year over year. Another aspect of your billing is sewer. Sanitation and wastewater treatment, that is, we're going to maintain that at $30 a month. The capacity, availability, and tap fees, sewer service fees all make up the revenue generation for the sewer, wastewater treatment. And again, that it will be staying at $30 per month. From the sewer operations side, 2026 budget, far right-hand side, sewer tap, sewer service, our net revenue is a little over $3 million. Net income is $937,000, which will go into our reserves. Greg touched briefly on that earlier, but those reserves are being built up for major capital projects later on down the road. We're going to do a new McGill study that will tell us exactly what we need to be setting aside and what projects will be coming up, so we are well positioned for when those happen. Regular capital for sewer operations spend for 2026 will be $268,000. The budget for 25 was $200,000. Sewer capital, our availability, capacity fees, our net revenue for the sewer capital is $444,000. Our beginning cash balance for 2026 is $3.2 million. 1.5 goes to the Rotherham Force Main. Is that correct, Bruce? Pump station, excuse me. Net revenue will be $444,000, and our ending cash balance will be $2.1 million. For 2025, we had a total project projected expenditures of $812,000, which included the completion of the St. George Drive, Tawny Oak Loop Extension, Maple Ridge Extension, as well as the Pomeroy Drive, Stillington Loop, Newcastle Lane Extension. The Oak Knoll Force Main project as well. For 2026, our project total is 1.7, close to 1.8 million. 1.5 of that is the Rotherham Force Main. What I mentioned earlier, the studying and the permitting of the drip field expansion, as well as the collection system expansions. This slide represents some of the things we as members can do to help with the amenities. And we just thought we would throw up some ideas. MK and myself just came up with brief talking points in reference to what the membership can do to help. And as you can see, there's 9 slides here. She's asking, where we are just reminding the membership that we're building a new restaurant. We would greatly appreciate the membership eating breakfast, lunch, or dinner once a month. Play extra round of golf if your wife will allow you to do that. Tune up your golf clubs and game at the golf garage. Enjoy a swim or just relax at the pools. Use our snack bars. And rent Stonehenge and multipurpose center room for private parties catered by Fairfield Glade Food and Beverage Department. So the bottom line to this budget is a financial healthy club with robust amenities, which we have, is directly tied to your property values, which we all hope to increase. If one changes the financial health or status of amenities, it is reflected in our property values. Thank you very much, and this is the time for questions. And Greg wanted me to remind you to please use the microphones in the back and state your name.
Jason,
Yes, sir.
you're taking the 25% of the assessments for capital. We don't have to do that. Did you all consider reducing that 25% to say 15% to save $1 or $2 on the assessment increase?
We did, Bruce. We are anticipating that to be a tool in our toolbox going forward once we know more about what is going to happen with the timeshare or interval ownership.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. That was my thought, was using 2026 to go through that total refinancing analysis without the timeshares, which obviously is significant. And you've done a great job in 4 months since you knew what was going on to make some adjustments. But I was wondering if you could make one other adjustment of maybe $1 or $2 off of that increase until next year, when you can look at the entire thing, as well as a 10-year capital plan, because you're getting additional capital through the amenity reserve fees of $5,000 and next year $6,000. So the other question I have, Jason, is right now we have a little over $1.5 million in the sewer service fund. And I'm curious if you talked about maybe reducing the sewer service fee of $30 to $29 or $28 to, again, help with the assessment increase?
So that's a great point, Bruce. It was up for discussion, and I think that the overarching answer to that is we are, without a study in place, we don't know exactly what we need in terms of reserves or spend. And so the idea was to leave it as is until we have more definitive information on what is actually going to be used for.
Okay, this is, as everybody in this room knows, $4 is all we've ever gone up maximum in a year. This is significant to the residents and members of Fairfield Glade, and I would ask that you take a look at every dollar that you can reduce that increase for next year while you rebalance the financing without timeshares. And I appreciate the magnitude of that problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Nico Sergio. It's anticipated or possibility that the 487 timeshares may sell in 2026. That at $6,000 a unit, that would be close to $3 million. Has that been calculated, or is that being looked at in your budget?
So we have not quantified a sale. We don't know what's going to happen. Even as of this morning, we still don't know what the actual plan is. So we have not quantified in the 2026 budget $3 million, as your math would suggest, injected into the budget.
In September or October, Liberty bought out Good Samaritan, and that was over like 190 or 200 units, and that was like $1.2 million. Did that funding go into the plans for the 2026 budget?
So Nico, the sale to Liberty was a business sale. It wasn't tied to a transaction in reference to amenity reserve fee. They had lots. They had 78 lots. Those were taken into consideration, as well as the amount of pay-to-play or usage from Liberty was taken into consideration.
Oops, I got a couple more questions. You do an annual pie chart of amenities, and I did up a pie chart on the Gulf subsidy for 2025, and then I did a projection of what the Gulf subsidy would be for 2026. And my calculations come up that for next year, if the Gulf subsidy stays at 29%, it will be a $2.55 million, $2,556,000. Has that been, has your subsidies been calculated when you talk about the funding that, or the money that Gulf is going to raise? Has that been included in there, that we're subsidizing it by $2.5 million for next year?
Gulf is, as a division, is self-sustaining. So they contribute to the subsidies and the other amenities. What we did quantify in for 2026 is the loss of rounds for Wyndham, or the timeshare. So that has been injected into our budget for 2026.
So I'm still confused. Where is this subsidy funding? How is this subsidy funding calculated into the Gulf revenue?
There's no subsidy for Gulf. Gulf is a self-sustaining, profitable division within the amenities.
You do a yearly chart that shows the subsidies for the different amenities, and the one from 2025 projection, a budget allocation, shows that 29% of the Gulf budget is subsidized. So I'm still confused, and that's over $2 million, like $2.2 million. So how does that come into the golf budget, where's that, where's it show up on anything?
Jeff, do you want to answer any of this? Microphone.
Yeah, I think this is more about capital and the subsidy of what all it takes in the capital. But we'll get back to you on that, on the pie chart, because he obviously don't have the pie chart up here, and you're looking at something. So we'll get back with you on the answer to that.
From last year.
Well, the projection for 2025. And that's over $2 million that you're subsidizing golf. So you can get back to me.
Yeah, thank you.
Jason, a few things. First of all, I think maybe part of the confusion, or at least I was confused, is when Greg stood up and said, all our amenities are subsidized. And it's hard to look at like a chart like this for finance, semi-non-financial people to try to figure out Greg's reference and then your reference here. So perhaps you can, break it down between now and the budget meeting, what Greg meant by subsidies.
So you want to quantify what he meant in reference to subsidies for the amenities?
Yeah, I'm just to clarify, his point in the beginning, correct me if I'm wrong, all our amenities are subsidized. That's what I heard. Okay? Yet now you're pointing and saying, no, golf is not subsidized. It's the capital piece and how that flows in, I'm sure. But give us a chart that shows it and extend it out. I'm a little on this chart, and maybe you have the answer, have to get back to us. But, we've been flowing along through all the meetings, and when we look at where the budget is, and I'll reference my favorite, food and beverage, budget is $94,000. Lo and behold, now we're the last 2 months of the year, we're doing something, reprojecting, figuring out we had bad budgets, whatever it is, but now we're going to be $550,000. Can you talk about the difference?
Yeah, the difference between the projections or the budget of 94 and the loss of 550 primarily is within the snack bars. And another portion of that is overruns in salary and wage expense. So a change needed to be made. Bill decided that it would be better for us to bring food and beverage back to under our umbrella, which we could control and be more nimble. And I think, as well as Bill and the other people that made that decision, feel this is the best solution for us going forward to mitigate a lot of these losses with a management company.
So I appreciate that, and hopefully time will tell that will happen. But I guess the concern I have is then when we look at next year and the change with Druid going online in September, big change there, and how comfortable we feel with that. And I guess it leads me to the question, could you quantify in 2026 that budget amount, the $201,000, how much is in there due to the elimination of the discount? Okay, so we're getting full boat now on it. How much was baked into that number? So in other words, if the discount continued, what would that budget look like?
If the discount continued based on 2025 numbers, it would add an additional approximately $275,000 to the loss.
Okay, so it would be comparable to what it is this year with Druid going online.
Yes.
Okay. And then, could you flip one slide back? I think it's the, yes, okay. Okay, that answered my question. Thank you. Last one would be just regarding sewer and what I'm calling kind of the master plan. It seems to me that we're now redoing the sewer master plan, and yet we are going to do, quote unquote, the master plan. It seems like we have the timing out of whack. You'd want to have a community core study master plan, whatever you want to call it, in place, and then ask McGill, in this case, to use that plan to project for the next 10 years. And we're flipping it. We're having the sewer plan done before the master plan, and that concerns me. And it concerns me even more because we don't know what's happening on the timeshares. And let's face it, the timeshares, as I remember the number, there were about 20,000 people a year that used the timeshares versus our population of 10,000. So that's going to have an effect in demand. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
For those who go to the Fairfield Glade Community Club website, they'll find a statement. The Fairfield Glade Community Club Board of Directors is very pleased with Bobby Jones' links and the savings attributed to access of their buying power was over $141,000 in 2022. Now that we will be losing this buying power savings, will that not increase the amount that we have to subsidize?
There are nationwide club procurement resources similar to Bobby Jones Links. The major one is called Club Procure, in which 4,000 clubs are members and use that as buying power. That being said, Bobby Jones Links has offered their continuation of their procurement services for 2026 at a cost of $7,000, which is being evaluated because it does have value. So we can have that availability to us without their full management oversight.
So we're pulling this in-house to be more nimble, yet we're going to pay $7,000.
There's a delta just for instance on golf carts of $60,000 on what we can, through our connections over long term that Jeff has had with Easy Go, Club Car and the like for all these many years. The ability through the national buying power, and this is just one example of Bobby Jones Links, it was a $60,000 delta to the good. I think that more than warrants a $7,000 membership fee in an annual basis for a year. But there's also other club procurement sources that I mentioned, the company Club Procure, very nominal fee as well, but has your ability to buy paper products, office supplies, all across the board. You are a part of a union, if you will, a consolidation of 4,000 like clubs throughout the country that have joined Club Procure to be our broker, if you will, on purchasing power. Same thing that Bobby Jones does with their association with not only Club Procure, but all their other multiple properties. So it's a membership fee you pay on a basis, and you more than get back the value of that in your savings than if we were out there waving our own flag in the market as Fairfield Glade by ourselves.
So apparently, before we were not utilizing savings by buying power. If we saved $141,000 by utilizing Bobby Jones Links, apparently we're not able or weren't willing to do so beforehand.
Sorry, Mr. President, I don't understand your question.
I'm not.
I think where the confusion is, there's two contracts with Bobby Jones Links. One to operate the food and beverage, another one which is a procurement agreement. The one that we're taking back away is the food and beverage piece. We still can buy the membership to the savings, if you will. When in 2022, what happened is we initially talked to Bobby Jones Links. So the only thing that we were doing in 2022 with them was the procurement piece. Later, we got into the food and beverage discussion with them. So we still have the ability to do that contract, still have the ability to save that. Now, what happened before? What was happening is that our people were negotiating the best agreement they could get as Fairfield Glade. Now, through Bobby Jones and through the other organization that Bill's talking about, we can be represented with a whole lot of other clubs for doing that procurement, and that's going to be a better deal for us, so we're doing it. So it's not that people were doing something wrong in 2021. It's they were doing the best they could with just negotiating on behalf of Fairfield Glade. Now, in 2022, what happened was we bought into the savings program or the procurement program with Bobby Jones. In 2023, we signed a separate contract to get into food and beverage, and those stayed as two separate agreements. Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Okay?
One last question. When we used to get the dashboard figures on food and beverage, I did analysis, and you were projecting or reporting that snack bars only average $156 a day in revenue. I question that number. I think our golf group would drink $156 worth of beer.
Is that a question?
My
do-
question is, how do we come up with that poor number?
I don't know what number you're referencing, the $156 on, I'd have to look at the dashboard. So I don't have an answer for that, Mr. Patterson.
Will we be getting that dashboard back in future reports?
I think there was a dashboard, I believe you're referencing in the financials in '24. I have no personal qualms with that dashboard. So I think that will be a revamped version, a more, it was, I will say this, it was difficult to follow at times, but those numbers with food and beverage returning inside, I have no issue with sharing any of that.
Well, also bean counters would like to see it return. We like to look at numbers.
Sure. Beans, burgers, dogs, whatever beers, we'll count them.
Yeah, Joe Fitzgerald. My question is, will the amenities stay the same? Will the maintenance and the construction stay the same based on the numbers that you gave us? And was there anything put on a table by the board that would be in consideration to take off or stop or cut back on, like closing one of the pools? With these numbers, everything is going to be staying the same, and the staffing will stay the same. You're not looking to lay off anybody or anything like that?
So the rebalancing that we had mentioned was keeping the amenities as they are,
Okay.
maintaining the reserve spending as it is.
And maintenance?
Maintenance, yes, sir, the
Okay.
same.
And the staffing and all of that? And hiring the people that you plan to hire in '26?
So we're going to do a staffing study model to see what we actually would need here, but we have not built into the budget a bloated payroll with positions that may or may not be filled. So everything that we've done in the budget is keeping everything as is in 2025.
As status quo?
Yeah, well, hopefully we're going to do better.
Yeah, okay.
But the spending is the same, as you can see, has increased. So we are maintaining our current amenities and facilities.
Yeah, I mean, the club, this is a big shock to the club and all of that. But my personal thing is we got to keep up where we are, other we'll wind up with another Legends situation with the building and as far as maintenance and stuff like that.
The 2026 budget represents us spending on the community to keep it at a high standard.
Thank you.
just to follow up on what he said, I think it's wonderful that you're going to have a staff study done to match work effort. My question is on that, who is going to be doing that?
So that would go through the HR department, which would flow to Bill Ward, the COO. And it would be an outside study, is my assumption.
Okay, outside, does that mean people other than the directors who govern each amenity?
We haven't enlisted, or we don't have an actual definitive plan, but I would assume we would use consultants as well as the SMTs to provide the necessary feedback.
Okay, I would like to make a recommendation that you can save your money on consultants. Why don't you ask some people around here who have some experience with that they could volunteer their time to be on that study committee? I would, for one, love to be on it. I've been an employee here since 19, and I've seen a lot, and I'd like to give my input.
We would
So
love it.
I would love to have y'all, put it out to the membership. Would somebody like to volunteer to be on this committee? Just a suggestion.
Thank you.
And did I also hear something about you're going to cut the employees' benefits?
No, that we
Oh.
are not cutting employee benefits.
Hey, Jason, Tom Ratcliffe, just a quick follow-up again. So when the budget was done, I'm trying to kind of correlate this with people and population and visitors and things like that, the overall budget. Because you said we factored in nothing for the timeshares. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody in the audience, but I kept hearing through all the meetings that timeshare guest per year was 20,000 people. Our population is 10. So we didn't factor into the budget 20,000 people in the revenue side and all the expense. So from a staffing standpoint, I'm trying to figure out how you guys, and you arrived at the budget, how you included that in the budget, that reduction in the number of people here. It's not a shot at the police department, so please, Kate, don't take it as one. We got a police department of X number of people. Well, we have 20,000 people less in this community now.
I'm not,
Clarify for me.
okay. The 20,000 that have heard of is rounds of golf. That was from Wyndham, in timeshare. We looked at just dollars and however many people that is. I mean, you can have people that come and don't spend anything. But we had the total revenue stream, which we could calculate from Wyndham, as well as the assessments.
Ted, we had she was before you.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, the uncertainty and the risk has been mitigated because we don't know if they're could return in 3 months, 6 months, or a year. So, that was calculated as part of we can't assume that in this year's budget.
Hi, my name is Lisa Butner, and I had a couple questions. One being, what happens if Wyndham does sell this pretty quick and they bring it, maybe a company that has even more business will be coming in and bring us even better business and more money? What will happen to any kind of surplus that comes in, if that were to be? I know we're dealing with the worst case scenario, but have we thought about the opposite?
So that would be a board question. I'll let Greg take that one.
You give me the good ones, huh? Yes, we have thought about it. I mean, we have to budget for what risk we're willing to assume. If something happens sooner, we'll talk about that when we know what it is. But to project or put this into the budget now would not be a prudent thing or a good thing for us to do, because then we give you a false hope and we come back at you in about 4 or 5 months and we're talking about a special assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So we're taking a conservative approach. If something happens quicker with Wyndham, we'll be happy to talk about what we do with any kind of additional funds that we didn't take into account. But the other thing that we're also working towards, that's why those two words are important to us. The self-sufficiency is the piece that we're really looking for here. We do not want to become so dependent on another outside party that if they pull out all of a sudden, we're dealing with this on another year.
Right, right. I was kind of surprised to hear we assumed Wyndham would stay forever and
That was the
never
assumption
had.
you'll see in the CNRs and bylaws,
I-
that's for sure.
I guess so, but they never promised that, so.
But yes, I mean, when we know more what Wyndham's really going to do, then we're going to have to look at everything again. But we're going to look at it through the lens of being self-sufficient and making sure that whatever happens with a Wyndham-like or whatever they do with the sale of that, that we take into account what's going to be best for us.
Okay, so, and the second question was food and beverage discount going away. I don't know how you do the projections you do, but are you assuming that without that discount, there'll be no change in the use of the restaurant? Because I know we go there once a week.
I'll let Jason
But-
speak to the reduction of the discount and how much that shows. He's already said that, about $275,000. But those of you that were here about a year ago, Bruce, I think you were involved in this. Mike Epler, I know you were involved with it. The FAC was involved with it. Bruce Horn, who's here today, he was involved with it. We presented to the community when Druid comes on board what it's going to take. Now, and I'm not going to badmouth, Reds or the Poorhouse or any of the others because you don't always want to go to the same place every day. I get that. But the fact is if we're going to have these amenities, and we did an awful lot of research to hear from the community what you wanted at Druid, we're going to have to support them. And if we don't support them, the subsidies go up. So we showed you in a business plan over a year ago exactly what that was going to take before we made final decisions on Druid. So I would refer you to that particular presentation. I think it was like May or June, or something or other. But at any rate, it's on the website. But the real secret is here for all of our amenities. And that's what that last slide that Jason showed you in his presentation really is all about. We all got to contribute. If we go out, I'll raise my hand, I've been guilty of it. If I go out and I play courses over in Cookeville or Knoxville, that's revenue we're not getting here. And you are paying through your assessments if, in fact, we don't cover the cost of those things. So this is a real wake-up call as well for the community to say, the amenities we have, we need to support. And if we don't want to support them, then we're going to have to make other decisions down the road. So that's what that's all about, okay? There's no easy answer here. Yeah, I should have said that, yeah. One of the things that Bill told the board, and I know he'll do, is he's going to look at the pricing on the menu as well. So even though we're taking out the 20%, I should have mentioned that, thank you, Scott, is that we are going to look at those menu pricings and see where we are, okay? So it's not going to be an automatic, all right?
Ted Landers, a couple things. One of them is there's a lot of
I'm still mic'd up.
there's an awful lot of members here who haven't been to our restaurant in many years. And I think that it was worth looking at, since we are currently subsidizing, if during the winter season when we are not as busy in the restaurant, if we could do some kind of electronic voucher which they could turn in order to encourage people to try the restaurant again and see that things have changed, and it is better than it was several years ago. So we're already subsidizing it, so why not encourage people to come? And if you gave them some kind of a 30-day ticket kind of a thing with a discount on it, they would bring other people with them, and hopefully that would increase overall revenue. That would be my one thought. The second is, when I was thinking in my head what the increases were going to be for this year, I kind of figured you had to make up the Wyndham or timeshare stuff, and you still had to do a 3% increase for inflation. So I was in the $15 neighborhood, so I'm not really surprised because you factored in some other things that I didn't have information about upcoming major projects. So I don't think that's out of the question. Nobody likes to have to pay a higher rate, but I think you've done a good job of explaining why, and I don't think it should have been any shock to us since we had to make up the 11.3% of our revenue, which was almost $3 million from them that we don't know we're going to have this year. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I presented this at the food and beverage meeting, the board meeting, early October. But for those of you who don't know, by bringing the food and beverage back in-house, and it's my intent and direction and with the approval which the board has, is to treat food and beverage and bring the professionalism and the skill sets in the leadership there that we have in other areas of our community and things that we have achieved in golf, in our racket sports, and community center and the like. With that, the fees that were formerly going to Bobby Jones Links for management are being utilized to bring in and hire a trained, experienced executive chef. We currently have with us, if you're not aware, our interim chef, Chef Greg Smith. And Chef Greg is formally trained. He's from the California Los Angeles School of Culinary Arts. He comes from Los Angeles originally. He's worked with the Ritz-Carlton Corporation. He worked for 4 seasons at Nevis Island. He worked at Sea Island, you may be familiar with, as a banquet chef at a $17 million operation at Sea Island, and other very, very fine experiences. And I'm working with a professional firm that only recruits and specializes in the recruitment of executive chefs. That is what we will be bringing on board. I will be getting a list of those candidates tomorrow, and we'll be formally going through that process. But Chef Greg has already come in. He's doing things that are wonderful in our food and beverage and already, some of the features, but also the training, the expectations, the accountability, the cleanliness, all of that in our food and beverage operation that we can be proud of. And this will be able to provide us with things. If we're going to offer chicken salad, it's going to be the best darn chicken salad we can have. We're going to have the best hot dog. We're also going to have great fresh fish. We're going to have good features in the evenings. We're already doing that. He did a golden tile special a week ago or so over pimento cheese grits with an okra relish and some fried okra fritters on there. It was fantastic. One table of 7 bought, all of them got the special. The other, we sold 4, and we had 11 of those sold in one night. He's doing a lot of good things already that we're trying to do in some features with only a short time that he's been here. But you know, we just I want to present and provide an opportunity and a dining experience that you do not find anywhere else in Cumberland County or even beyond, that we can be proud of and that you should support and you should want to go to support. My hope is that one day the line that Woody Allen had one time, it's kind of like Yogi Berra, he said, yeah, nobody goes there anymore, it's too crowded. So hopefully we'll have that problem in the future and something you can all be proud of and not have to drive here or there or whatever, and support your club and be proud of what we're offering you. Because ideally, all of our departments and all of our amenities should be at the same level in your experience going throughout your day and out your week and in your club life here, community life here. It's all at the same level of excellence. You're not experiencing ups and downs across the way. That's the goal, and that's what we're working towards. I just wanted to share that. I think we have a lot to look forward to.
Tom Baker. I was wondering, in the presentation, it was stated that not all the units in Wyndham were owned by Wyndham. Do we know the total number of units and how many units are not owned by Wyndham? and represented by HOAs?
I don't think we have, so there's 8 HOAs, and then my understanding, 20% of the units are owned by Wyndham. 17? 70, excuse me, 70%.
17%?
70.
Huh?
So there's 3 buckets. There's Wyndham, there's Club Wyndham, and there's interval owner. So Wyndham probably owns 10%, meaning the company of Wyndham. The other 70% is owned by Club Wyndham, and the club, the people who converted from a fixed week to points, and the rest is owned by the association. Make sense? Good.
So those are privately owned then?
Mark?
Don't run away.
So what was the question?
He's over here. He's over here.
So those are privately owned units then?
The intervals. Intervals are privately owned by
Okay.
somebody who could be in this
So they
crowd
will,
right now that has a deed for Sterling Forest Week 1 every year.
all right, so those will not be sold as part of the Wyndham
Yes, they
sale?
will.
They will?
Yes.
That's what they're working on
Yes.
now?
The governing documents in each association, it's not Wyndham,
Yeah.
it's Laurel Ridge, it's Wellington, they have a board of directors, and they operate underneath that. And all owners, from Club Wyndham to Intervals, they're all in the same bucket.
So that's what they're negotiating now with those groups?
Not so much with those groups, it's been voted on, they're up for sale. We're filing Chapter 11 in the near future, and it'll be sold as a whole, it will be piecemealed, we don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Am I done?
Hey, Bill, the last point as far as the food and beverage that I get confused, and maybe you can help me. You were talking the executive chef, and he's doing these wonderful things. The new restaurant, as I remember, the board was very specific on the menu. And I'm trying to tie that, being very specific of what that would actually serve, with all this other, what I would term fanciness, because it didn't match with what the board said very definitively back then that the menu would be.
It will still be that. It will be a fun, you will have something for every interest in a palate to, the executive chef is a overseer of the whole entire operation. It's not just about a person standing there making dishes that, that yes, they do that, but my point is I want to have, and I believe the board endorsed it, and you should be able to go and enjoy a soup and salad for dinner with friends, if that's what you want. You should also be able to go and enjoy a nice piece of fish that's been thoughtfully presented, if that's what you want. You should be able to come off the golf course between your round, in the middle of your round or after your round, and enjoy a cold beer on tap and a great hamburger or hot dog, or whatever your taste may be. That is what we're doing. It's about fun. Everybody eats. Not everybody plays golf. Not everybody does racket sports. So I'm not, it's about providing an environment that people want to support. Some people don't, and I don't know how, but I'm trying to push them. I'm not sure what beyond that your question is.
I'm pushing it because as I remember, and we have members of the previous board that were on there that could clarify it, I remember it was going to be a sports bar menu. That's what I remember.
It is an environment that is desirable to be at, in which you go and you can sit. It has a large bar. They have screens that you can watch your favorite sporting events. You can also visit with your friends at a table. You can order more sports traditional fare if you like. There'll be pizzas. There'll be also other opportunities for, as I've been saying, of nightly features that you may want to, if you want to order up. It'll be fun. That's what people want. They want an environment which is, they feel comfortable, they go to, and they get variety, and they have a good time. That's what we're going to provide. If that doesn't sell, I don't know what else to do.
Good, and I appreciate the clarification. It's just, when you're talking about this, you're talking about cost in different varieties. Menus translate into cost, and so that's,
And those
why
have to
the
be
point.
managed to budget.
and,
But it also
Yes.
needs to be supported by the community.
well, and that's the other piece of it, and that's why the clarification, I think, is needed. But, okay, thank you. Did the Budget Committee and the board, separate question, Jason, consider, with the uncertainty, not increasing as much the fees and dwelling on, or using our reserves kind of in a method of this year being a transition year? So we're not going to take the full boat and pretend Wyndham is totally gone. We're going to take and do a budget realistic, but it may not have the full dues increase that we need to cover it, but we can manage it with our cash flow. And then next year, make the permanent adjustment, maybe once we knew something more than we know now with the timeshares. And I ask that because, to the lady's point, if tomorrow they're sold, because Mark just said they're all up for sale, if they're sold, I haven't heard anything come back to say, well, we're going to reduce the dues. And typically, government, that doesn't happen. So that's why I'm wondering, was it considered?
It was considered, dipping into the operating reserve. We felt that the most conservative approach we could take, raising the assessments this year to cover that unlikeliness that anybody would return, we did not want to have baked into the budget for next year another large increase when we could have mitigated that this year.
But it kind of goes contrary to what was happening in previous years, because previous years, we do a budget, and then the budget at the end of the year, we had a big surplus, of which we then transferred that money, So now, and we would never take and refund the dues or anything on that. We'd have the big surplus. Now we kind of refuse to look at taking the risk, a little bit more risk. And hey, if it was better or something else happened, great, we're going to do better.
I appreciate your comment.
I happen to disagree. Our reserve is actually underfunded. We don't need to burn through it. I ran some numbers myself, excruciating detail. I'm pleased at $17. I actually am, because I came up with just over a $20 increase. So thank you. Appreciate it, Jason.
Thank you.
I'll make this quick. First of all, you're saying about Wyndham, you just found out in July. When Mr. Anderson came to one of our meetings, it was the only meeting that I remember him being at, he stated right then and there, and within 8 years, Wyndham would be pulling out. Now, why the board, not necessarily this board, didn't keep a contact with Wyndham saying, now what's going on, maybe you did, I don't know. But then also, you talk about cutbacks. Well, you want us to all, do our community and everything. First of all, I want to know, when I read the one, and maybe I misunderstood it when I read it because it went by quite fast, we are going to have an increase in salaries. We're going to have this and this and this. Why are we not eliminating people? We do not have the time-sharing people. Do we need all the people that we have here in the community center? Now, maintenance is a different program. There's certain areas that we cannot eliminate people. But are we looking at that? Are we looking in-house at the office, the main house, that there are programs that we cannot fund for different people anymore? I mean, there's things that I do not think that you guys have looked at to eliminate. What about now, tell me if I'm wrong, the board members, do they get free meals? Do they get free golf? Maybe that should go away too. We all have to give in. It's not a certain amount of people, it's everybody. Now, I've been here 27 years and I've seen a lot, and I've worked for the community up at the office, and I've seen things that they told me were never done, and I knew they were done. So we need to, as far as I'm concerned, the board and your little groups all need to go back and look at what can we eliminate? What can you give up? You want us to give up? What are you going to give up? And I mean, the increase is, like the gentleman said, I thought it was going to be more. And I'm waiting for you guys to come through with a special assessment that we need more money. But I really think that there needs to be a better look at all of this.
Thank you.
So I've tried to make it short.
Thank you.
Well, since it looks like we've gotten the questions answered, at least the ones we know now, I encourage you, if you think of other questions or comments, please get them into us at the website. We'll be posting all of this material along with the amenity fee structures for 2026. And you'll be getting notice of another meeting that we're going to talk about and vote on the budget here around December 1st. So please get your questions in and let's get the answers back to you. I appreciate all of you that came. I appreciate the fact that you listened and hopefully understood a lot more about the budgeting. We tried to make it an educational piece so that people understood how we got there. And hopefully we made some good strides on that. So thank you all for attending, and we'll see you again. Bye-bye. And have a happy Thanksgiving.